Scott, it's good to see you, man.
Hello, Connor.
How are you today?
I'm doing super well, thank you.
So,
How are you doing?
we're rocking it.
Yes,
Totally. High life is what we're talking about today.
the high life.
So, in times like these, living the high life, what's that mean to you?
Living the high life. You know, it means rising above all the tumultuous, rugged seas
Hmm.
and being tossed to and fro and gliding like like a pelican. You ever see pelicans fishing right on the shoreline?
Graceful,
Just gracefully gliding above all of it and
right?
just watching it all and deciding maybe I'll touch down here for a second. Maybe I'm back up to the glide,
Above the fear,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Above all the ideas that are being projected from all the angles that they're projected from.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we talked about doing something like this type of exchange, and we came up with the term high life, right? So the idea is like, what is high life, right?
Hmm.
What is it about? Hey, it's a way of being, right?
Definitely. Doing the work to delineate the truth from the lies, right? Bringing the truth to the surface and knowing and trusting and having faith that it's exactly as it needs to be. And there's a bigger reason than we understand.
For all things, right? To understand the truth of all things, right? So that's an interesting
Absolutely.
thing. It's one thing to say, let's let's live in the truth. Let's live in reality, right? And that's what it's about, right? The high life is about living in reality, not unreality, and living in truth, not untruth, right?
Right.
And so the idea is to differentiate the two and learn to distinguish between the two, so that one can live and moment by moment choose to live in reality as opposed to unreality, also known as fear,
Right.
right?
And with all this information moving around at this point in time,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's fair to mention that we're in the middle of what a lot of people are calling a pandemic, right? The coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And with all this information moving around, delineation of the truth is crucial. It seems that some people are trying to dissect the news and
To figure
really
out what's real,
to
right?
figure out, hey, what's the truth?
Mm.
What's the truth?
Yeah,
And it's difficult to do that with an external source, it seems.
right. So where do we? Let's talk about the coronavirus, right?
Mm,
And the real thing that's spreading, right? This is reality versus unreality, right? So the reality is, and the truth is, that the real thing I would purport that's spreading is fear,
yeah,
right? Fear is being there's a fire like a plains fire, just burning everything very rapidly, of fear spreading across the country. Fear of death, fear of loss of livelihood, fear of regularity, fear of comfort, right? Fear of change, fear of control, government control, all these things. There's all kinds of things happening. And that's the biggest virus that we're facing is the fear virus.
it's a mental
Hmm.
and a physical virus.
The other one is actually lagging quite a bit behind in terms of impact, the reality of the physical virus itself, right? The real problem we have is how are we handling it as conscious beings, right? And how are we handling the fear? And the cool thing is, it's just this is such a wonderful opportunity, right? It's giving everybody a chance to evaluate who they are,
Right.
right? What they relate to, hey?
And it is a choice. We can choose truth or untruth.
Free will, all times.
Right.
Yep.
And so to have this choice in, like you say, a tumultuous time, it seems to be like the stakes are high,
The stakes
right?
have been getting high, and they are really high now, right?
They're
We're all up in it now, eh?
definitely
Mm-hmm.
like this is a precipice, like a sorting. It's going to be sorted out, right? It's going to be like some things are going to have to be left behind after this.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of separating the wheat from the chaff, or taking the divine aspect out of all things, and being forced to leave the garbage behind, right? And that's what we do to live in the high life, right? We learn to do that on a regular basis. We
Right.
train ourselves to alchemically perceive reality from the most beneficial standpoint,
Right.
and let the other stuff go, let it die.
It requires a fair amount of surrender, a very fair amount. The surrender aspect. And what that looks like in a time like this is if I'm supposed to die from this thing, so be it.
See, to me, that's total surrender,
Is that
right?
reckless?
I think that's total surrender, right? Not
Total.
not fair surrender,
Total.
total, absolute surrender, right? Yes, and that's the case, right? If I'm supposed to, that's when you face death like that, you say, hey, if I'm supposed to go, right? If and you say, if this is what's meant for humanity, if there's a, and you're trying to get in touch with the positive aspect of, how this could be a positive event, right? And trying to let go of the fear and let go of the attachment, then part of that is me. What about me? And then you realize it's not about me. It's about the species. It's about something greater than me, the collective, right? And so we stop worrying so much about ourselves and worrying about the truth, right? And being an instrument of truth. Selfless service, as they call it, eh?
Right. And in that surrender, I say, is that reckless?
Right. So, how would you describe that? I'm curious to know how you would describe reckless surrender.
Well, in saying that, hey, if I'm meant to die from this, I'm not going to change my ways, so be it. Right? I'm going to keep going along in a peaceful manner, and I'm not going to entertain these ideas of getting sick and suffering. I'm not going to entertain them. They're not going to be part of my
Not going
consciousness.
to consume the fear.
Correct.
Spoon feed yourself the fear, right?
I'm not going to be entertaining those thoughts,
Hmm.
right?
There is a reckless component, right, that can be had through this, right? There is the right amount of what we would call, let's say, let's take the pandemic, quote unquote, uh, itself. There's a right amount of awe and reverence that you should
Reverence.
have for it, right? And then beyond that, there's fear, right? And where people draw the line for recklessness is all over the board
Right.
on that, right? So you've got folks who draw the line and say, like, hey, I'm not going to change anything. I have trust. I have total faith, right? And then you have those who take varying measures along the way, to those who confine themselves and maybe are living cowering in fear, and they're coming
Ruminating.
undone, right? Exactly.
Ruminating.
But it's all working out so beautifully because those people are in there dwelling and ruminating and facing their stuff. And this is a chance, right, to break free from it, because that's when you do it, right? That's when you pop up into the high life, right? When you face those fears and you release those fears. And,
Right.
and as a collective, holy cow, look at the opportunity. Stay away from each other, get into your bubble, go inside. You get a great chance and a lot of time to spend alone with yourself, contemplate, reflect. Who am I? What are my processes?
Right.
What is valuable? What is not valuable?
Right. So it's fair. It's worth saying that living the high life requires an extreme amount of dedication to the great work, which is meditation.
Yes, I would also add that, the great work is the accomplishment of disposal of all fear, true fearlessness, right? And true faith and
Hmm.
true love of all things, and being able to commune with all things and see clearly, right? Hear clearly. This is the finalities of the great work. And that meditation is a tool, the mainstay, right? Contemplative reflection and meditation. Notice I say like two of them, right? these are the things that one can utilize to accomplish that great work and to elevate oneself into that higher life. Get out of the muck and the mire. Get out of the dwelling, right? Get out of the suffering. Get your get your get your immune system and your kundalini raised to its highest level so that your immune system is strong as can be, so you can fend off this thing or whatever it is,
Right.
namely the fear, but also the physical variant of the virus.
Sure. And this has been done in history many times, especially by yogis, where they come down with the sickness and they're able to fend it off with the power of the mental state,
They
the power of their
a
mind.
yogi a yogi turns over all systems to the ultimate, and the ultimate beats it, right? So
The unrecognized intruder will simply leave.
it
The
shall be
intruder,
vanquished, correct?
right,
Yeah.
being the virus, if it's unrecognized,
Well, here's the thing to
it will
think about.
leave.
If you don't have the fear, right? If you don't have the things, the metaphysical things that the physical variant of the virus can latch onto within you, if you've cleaned yourself up, then there's less of a potential. Just like if you are in better physical health, if you're in better metaphysical health, then
Mm,
there are less things for this thing to attach to, less things for it to a chance for it to propagate, right?
right. And so I think it's important to talk about how to console loved ones.
Interesting. That's an interesting facet. I'm personally handling. Conversing more with my mom than in the past because uh, she's a person. This is just one of the things I'm doing. She's a person who often we don't have to talk a lot, so she just goes about and does her thing. She's a very busy person. She's 75 years old, right? And she keeps herself full and busy and everything. And so now she's spending more time inside, right? And one has to be in the state of, trying to communing with another individual. Put yourself over in their shoes for a minute, truly, and say, what's going on over there now, right? That has all changed, and how can we support that, right? How can we? It's console. Just do what's right,
Yeah,
right? Do what's right. Be selfless. And if you're
yeah,
selfless, you can call it consoling, I guess, right? But it's being a friend or being another human, right?
true. Yeah, empathy.
True empathy, correct? Yeah. Right place, right time.
Have you noticed any kind of projections going on about the fear from loved ones?
I've noticed projections about the fear, and I think that's a standard thing that happens during the process of a person
Mm-hmm.
reassuming, and now we're talking about a collective individually having the chance to reassume their sovereignty, each one of them, right? But when a person has a chance to reassume their sovereignty, what they begin to realize is how they do project fear
Mm,
out on others,
right.
okay? And so, and they have to just, everybody has to spend the time looking at how and own their fear and not project it on others. That's not going to be very healthy, right?
Right. And it becomes a righteousness about their fear that they want to, hey, make sure that you know. I want you to know so that you're safe that I'm right about being afraid.
This is definitely not the high life,
No, no.
right?
So, how do we handle this when it comes at us, right? How to deflect?
Yeah, so how do we handle it?
Well, what I've come across as a strategy is to allow them to be comfortable. Whatever makes you more comfortable is my response. Hey, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm not going to argue against you and say that I'm right. I'm going to say, hey, whatever makes you comfortable
Are you saying that or are you exuding it energetically?
energetically,
So
because I don't say that out loud.
you're a receiver. You're being a pure
Right,
receiver, right? You're allowing them to project their reality upon you.
right. And if they are receptive,
Hmm.
then there's an opportunity to share, where I come from on that subject matter.
That's how we do it, right?
If they're only if they're receptive to it, but otherwise, hey, remain comfortable. Hey, if that makes you feel all
There's a
right, then
really important aspect here, which is not to cater to
enabling.
enable, right? To enable another's fear, right? So as long as it's not catering or enablement to the other's fear, there's a certain load that you can take, and you just can't take more than that load. It's not. It's not. It's irresponsible. That's irresponsible, right?
True. Right.
To
There's a line
to
where
take
you have
it
to
so you
stand
can
firm.
exactly and say, here's where I'm at. Here are my thoughts on the matter, right? And the way I look at it with individuals is, and communing with another individual is, always default to the other individual first. Give somebody a chance to share their reality. Okay, great. Your reality is as such, and now maybe I'll have the chance to share my reality, right? So then you share your reality, right? And now if you've shared your reality and both people are willing to listen to each other, now you've got a scenario that's worthy of potentially carrying forward in the future. If it doesn't work that way and you go to share your reality and it's shut down and they mow you down with theirs again, what do you have to do besides avoid the scenario again in the future?
There
Because
we
you
go.
can't feed that fire,
Right.
right?
Avoid the scenario in the
Right.
future.
Now,
Correct.
then living in the high life because we're not allowing those situations to come in constantly. And we're also not being unempathetic, right? But we're doing it's tough love, right? It's the idea of, hey, enough of that, right?
Yep.
We're going to have to stand firm here, and we can't be because that fear virus,
Can't be a soundboard for lies.
you can't absorb that stuff exactly, right? Can't affirm the lies and the fear. Hmm.
So, as far as the collective consciousness right now, where do we sit?
We're at a bit of a turning point, eh?
I'd say so.
So one of the mechanisms that we can use um, to ascertain what's going on. There's a bunch of divination tools and whatnot, right? But there's a standard process that an individual goes through and then a collective goes through, whether it's a group, a family, a nation, a globe, a whole race of beings, right? It goes through a process of starting here and evolving into this space, right? Well, we're at a tipping point,
Mm.
right, of this process. And in speaking, let's use the word taroistically, right? In the tarot, the card would be the tower for like the collective. So the tower representing, and then you can look it up or whatever, representing the destruction of the old way, right? The demise of the old way. All of a sudden, a thunderbolt from heaven comes down and just freaking blows everything up. And all of your pieces are now like in slow motion when you're crashing or something, and they're
Yep.
just suspended in the air. And it all doesn't make much sense anymore. And they could come down any which way and you don't even know. And I feel like that's where we're at. It's a real opportunity to reconfigure things
Right.
to that higher degree.
And this starts on an individual basis, right? Once everyone is doing their individual work,
Yeah.
that's how progress as a collective consciousness is going to be made.
Technically, the precipice is met. The tipping point is met for the collective because early adopters, early adopters have gone through the process already and have brought humanity through their work, right? And we can look back at sages and philosophical saints, and whatnot of the past from all disciplines, and modern ones as well. There's many that have brought that collective right to this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we're ready for a pull shift, right? A true shift in understanding, right? From fear and attachment to embracing the mystery and love, and from seeing things in a way of not this or that, this and that,
Correct.
right? When you have this and that, you have compassion and unity and love and acceptance for each other's ideas. This or that, struggle, fighting, fear, protection, you know. So we have a wonderful opportunity um, as a collective to elevate us into the high life, right? To bring us up. And so we talk about like the high life, and that's the idea of this series of podcasts, right? What do we experience in the high life, on our day-to-day basis? What does it mean to be in the high life, right? So we talked about like some of the darker aspects, and you can't have the dark without the light without the dark, right? We're two sides of the equation here. So we talked about some of that stuff. So what is the high life about? You know what I mean?
Yes,
What's it about?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's about being at peace with where we're at, especially as individuals, and letting go of the things outside of our control and kind of coasting at a nice uh, altitude, a cruise control per se, where you've got your business handled, where you're not mucking up all the waters of your consciousness and get carried away by ideas. They no longer phase your perceptions.
Wiped away
It's a
the
still,
Wiping away the colored lenses, the delusional lenses that help that obscure the vision of reality,
yeah. And
right?
then that's when true states of being can be experienced to the fullest, like joy
Mm-hmm.
or laughter or just enjoyment. If we're talking about the light,
And we are. Yeah, so we're talking about here we are talking about the idea of high life in the middle of a pandemic. Some people might say, "What are you guys freaking nuts?" You know what I mean? Why should anybody be happy or joyful, right?
there's a lot of reasons, right, to find balance, right? We have to have balance, otherwise, I don't know exactly what will happen if we don't have balance. Maybe um, we'll follow the dark path.
Certainly at a crossroads, eh? Yep. So
Things,
so more than ever, it's that important to be right, be the actual change, right? To do the work inside, to take this wonderful time that we have, and our plates have been cleared of certain responsibilities, to look at ourselves and clean ourselves up so that we can be that change that we want to see in the world, so that we can help the collective move into this new space, right?
absolutely.
It's our job. It's everybody's job, really,
It's
especially if you know.
well, there comes a certain responsibility to share these things that resonate as true. And when you know something is true, you feel it, like you've experienced it.
Experience, exactly.
When you've been there and you've learned the lesson. You know, the best thing we can do is when the time is right, is share that lesson.
And how do we know when that time is right?
We have to be present.
Exactly. And empathetic, right? Because if we have that lesson and we've experienced that lesson, the old model says go out and preach this lesson, teach this lesson, whatever, and just barf it on everybody. But the reality is that's not the way that it works, right?
It
So
doesn't.
we live our high life, right? And we live in that elevated space, and then all of a sudden, people, it's an interesting facet, people, birds of a feather and vibratory signatures and stuff like that. People that are experiencing something similar will come into your world with this. They're going through the same kind of thing. And now you're recollecting the thing that you went through, right? And they come into your world and maybe they ask questions, right? And this is how it works: knock and it shall be answered, right?
Right.
Ask and it shall be given unto you. And that's just how it works,
Right.
right?
From a genuine
And
place.
so we're able to do that because we've experienced it. We've experienced what it's like to have had the thing and freed ourselves from that whatever, and to live in the new variant of that, free of the yoke, to have put down the sack, right? And so we not only do we represent it, but we can talk right to the actual experience that the person is going through, right? And how is it all orchestrated? I mean, how is it all orchestrated, right?
Strive to do so, right? It's interesting how all of this has kind of evolved because the podcast was kind of a idea to have local professionals talk about what they're passionate about. That was the original information operation. And then through this work that I've done with you and asked those questions, genuinely asked those questions and done the work, um, striving to clear out and find freedom in myself.
Mm.
And now this stay at home, stay safe has come about. And so this series of events, this evolution seems to have led to us sharing on a level where maybe people perhaps can get something from it and perhaps could start doing their work or start asking questions. It could be of themselves, it could be of people they respect, it could be over social media. It doesn't
This is a
matter.
beautiful thing. That's what we're talking about. That's what we talked about with regard to providing this podcast, this high life, right? Is now more than ever, people's worlds have been disrupted, right? They're disrupted, and who they thought they were, their relationship with their business and everything it's all up in the air. It's just all blown up right now. And there's so much information, like we talked about out there, so much media, so much misinformation, and you can get lost in it and be swirled up. And maybe there's 1% of truth in that 100%. And if you don't have the skill to discern, how to pluck that 1% of truth out, right? And hear something positive, then you could get swept into that garbage, right? And so the idea is people know they're looking for something. They're looking for something that they can hold on to, like a raft to hold on to. People who have gone through this kind of thing before, right? And I think that's what we're talking about, right? Is saying, hey, here's a discussion about what happens after a lot of these things get handled,
Yeah,
right?
it's
And people can relate to it, right? Hopefully, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's a far-fetched idea, but I feel really good about it, in the heart.
definitely, definitely. And it's similar to a near-death experience. It's, the death of the idea, right? The idea of who I thought I was, right? During when society was quote unquote normal, it's just being changed.
It's so interesting, right? Because the death of my way of my daily life, the death of my business, the death of my identity, my personal identity, my home identity, my work identity, they're all up for grabs right now. All the bets are off, right? And to what a great opportunity,
Opportunity
right?
keeps coming.
Exactly. So the idea is like now you're in the mystery, right? Boom. And the first thing you do is you relax and you say, wow, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath and just let it all go. And you begin to realize, wow, what a show. You know what I mean? And now you're looking for the truth. Then you kind of refocus all your efforts on finding reality, the truth, right? Same
Hmm.
thing.
Beyond the fear,
Love,
the doubt.
right?
I'm excited about this. Definitely.
It's a great opportunity for everybody. It's a beautiful thing. And I think we'll get through it. I think the quicker people get past the fears. I mean, obviously, they can be so destructive. So hopefully, we can just really move through the fear stage very quickly.
Definitely. And
Move into the love stage.
it's a great time to learn. It's a great time to pick up books and have solitude to read, have stillness to sit, right? It's proven to be one of the most, it feels like a ton of progress as far as reading, journaling, and making that time.
The truth of it is, we know the process, right? We
Yeah.
know the process. The process. What's the cornerstone of self-advancement? What is the cornerstone?
Meditation.
That's it. Meditation's the numero uno cornerstone,
Yeah.
right? You can
S-
add in other things, right?
Scripture.
Study of various things, typically higher philosophical text, long-standing philosophical texts or scriptures.
Journaling.
Yep. Some people might start with modern pop culture type things and
Sure.
modern books, but you ultimately get to the scriptural side of things.
Yeah. These books had more time recently to dive into, right?
Hmm.
And we hear this as a common response to the meditation is I don't have time. And that's now gone away. That's not.
But this is an interesting thing. People will still find a reason not to do it. But the thing is, you have to search for the reason to do it. You must search for the reason to do it. So, and when we talk about this idea of high life, to live in the high life, the thing I think about is as above, so below,
Mm.
right? How I exist by myself inside my consciousness, sinking deeply into my consciousness and who I am in there, right? And how I behave in there consciously will come to pass in material reality. This is the truth, and we come to understand this, right? And so go in and do that work and face yourself and understand, know yourself, know thyself, right?
Mm-hmm. Get comfortable.
Yep. It's the highest thing you could possibly do. It's the most important thing an individual could possibly do is to look inward. All this time looking outward and all of our senses pointing outward. And what a great time to just, I mean, the whole of the world has come to a screeching halt because it's time to digest.
Yep.
Eh?
Immerse
Yep.
ourselves.
Yep. Instead of blowing up, it's time to digest, a forced digestive moment. Sit down, take a load off, direct the senses inward,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. I love it. We feel complete.
I feel good. I feel like the idea of some of the beautiful things that we can experience on a daily basis by living in that space, right? By adjusting ourselves and finding that new way of being, right? Like kicking around town on a BMX bike and shredding through the streets,
There's moments like that.
right?
There's true moments like maybe just listening to a song,
Uh-huh.
right? And really appreciating it and taking the, giving it time.
Really letting yourself go over to giving yourself over to the thing, right?
Yeah. And dance,
Hmm.
right? Put on a song, dance, close your eyes,
Amen.
right?
Hey, dance the devil off.
Give it your full attention.
Yeah.
A lot of times we can be distracted, and really not appreciate the fullness of these things. Like taking a walk, listen to the birds.
Yeah.
You know,
And not taking a walk because you need to take a walk, because you need to exercise or whatever. I mean, it may start that way, but when you get out there, really, really let go and just like let go of all the preconceived notions of what I could have been doing, what I used to be doing at this time,
yes,
and saying, what is happening right now?
this is
And
really
what do you see?
awesome.
Beauty, right?
Right?
Like you
Take a
see
bike ride.
massive amounts of beauty. Yep. So this is some of the high life aspects of like, we talk about the idea of living in peace, right? The idea that we find ourselves, our heart rate is relaxed, right? Our breath rate is relaxed. At any moment, we can decide to put ourselves in semi-stasis or something like that to kind of check our systems, right? And say, where am I at right now?
Hmm.
Am I right there on my path right now? What's next, right? And then we
Yeah,
find ourselves doing these things, going out for doing the optimal thing at the optimal time because we're paying attention to the guidance system,
right. We're
right?
in touch with where we need to be, not where we want to be egoically. It's very clear what to do next when we're in touch with that.
Yeah, it takes a while to tune into it, right? The signal's always there, right?
Right.
The truth, that voice of truth, right?
Yep. And we can listen to it or not due to
Either,
free will.
yeah,
And we can this is another thing we can do is we can hear it and we can align with it and not act on it.
that's like hypocritical, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's a thing like stages or whatever, right? But you ultimately, the lesson I think there is that when you're going through these experiences, that when you're given an understanding,
Mm.
right? When wisdom is bestowed upon you, to act upon it
Act on it.
and not to just let it sit there or continue your old ways, right? Because then that let's call it that stream of wisdom will be kind of like choked off and shut down. Who chokes it off? You choke it off, right?
Right.
Because you're not making the move over and utilizing the tools that
It's
are
like
given to
pearls to swine.
you. Basically, yeah.
Karma. It is the high life. It's going on right now.
It's always going on, right? It doesn't matter what ultimately is going on outside of us. Peace lies within. The alchemy and peace and love and understanding lie within our consciousness and our perceptions. And no matter what's going on outside, we can always find ourselves at peace.
And we always have access to the truth.
Always. Nothing can take that away. Nothing. This is a beautiful thing, right? You can read books like Fahrenheit 451 or whatever, and they take away all the burning all the things and the truth and everything. But ultimately, it can't ever be taken away because your immortal soul is intertwined with you and always informing you real time of all the what do you call it? The Akashic record, right? The full history of all things that have transpired, right, is available through your Atman, through your immortal soul,
Yeah,
right?
the soul is eternal, right?
So,
The informant is there.
indeed, and if quite accurate,
Always exactly spot on.
the spirit walks before and clears the path and pre-informs the physical incarnate being of what's about to transpire.
If we're able to trust it.
If
If we're
we
able to surrender.
we reopen the channels of communication with it, right? We shut them down when we're younger and we made incorrect choices or didn't learn our lessons, and we heal the inner child and we reopen communications with the spirit, and we walk safely through a world that is seemingly on fire.
Yes.
Because it could be that it's on fire and everything's falling apart, or it could be that it's absolutely perfect and everything is awesome.
Absolutely perfect. Everything is awesome.
I mean, it's up to the individual, I suppose, right?
That's again the choice, right? We talked about a choice in the beginning. This is a choice that we can all make.
It's
That's the
important.
choice.
This is an important facet to understand, right? So how does somebody say, "Oh man, how could this guy talk about, everything's absolutely perfect with all these whatchalls, right?" Because death and fear and everything, right?
Yes.
Right? Because the long vision has an understanding of why we're here because of why these things are now here, right? This population scenario and virus scenario, right? What's driven them, and acceptance of, hey, this is nature. This is what's happening right now. So instead of like, why is it happening? Woe is me. What's the truth? Okay. What's the truth of why it's happening? And then residing in that beautiful truth, instead of searching out there in the media and everything, right? And listening to these talking heads spout their garbage, right? Just going inside and getting in touch with the truth. And then from there, resting peacefully in seeing the potential for the future, right? And keeping our eye on that prize,
Yeah.
right? For not for our sake, but for the sake of all, right?
Trusting that it's serving its purpose.
Exactly.
It knows better than me.
There's a higher consciousness at work orchestrating all things, right? And we don't fool ourselves into thinking that it's our control.
Right. That it can be known. Although all can be known.
All that you need to know,
Right.
right? And isn't that all, I guess, ultimately?
Yeah. It's perfection. Not too much.
Being informed real time, right? What information, what wisdom, what guidance do we need right now in this very moment? Moment by moment by moment by moment. How do we do it, right? We vacate our mind, right? We open our mind and we make it a space for the ultimate to deliver information on a real-time basis, right? And having that real-time guidance system, right? That North Star, right? Having that system delivering real-time information, we get guided peacefully,
Open to it,
open to whatever.
accepting of it,
Exactly, right? Open to
right?
all things, including the idea of our own personal demise.
Yeah. Like, if I'm supposed to die from this, so be it. Here I
Exactly.
am.
I was brought into this. Did I bring myself into this world? I remember being, a certain age boy and thinking to myself, wow, I've been given this chance. You know what I mean? Who gave me this chance, this opportunity? And that's the thing. It's still something that's been given. It's a gift, right? And it's
Still a gift.
exactly. It's not. We don't own it. We're not in control of how long it goes on and everything. And
Oh, it's hard.
right, exactly. It's,
It's hard. What? This gift
I know.
that
So
we're given?
we all go through it, right?
It's the truth.
And we get to pull back the veil of it's hard and it's so intense, and just see the beauty of it, right? May we all go there. Yeah,
Striving.
that's how we attain, right? Through striving.
We all have to do our part.
We have to want it more than anything else. Change like that.
It is striving, right? Meditation is not always passive. There's a seeking
Mhm.
that needs to be done as well.
Mm-hmm. I liken it to you're sending out a signal, right? You're saying I'm not sending out my signals to these other things anymore,
It's a driving force.
right? This
It's
is
like,
the thing that I want most is to know truth, to know love, to know what it means to be at peace. I want to know what it means to be. What is it that God is? What is it that the universe is? Whatever you want to call it.
no other desires outside of them.
Zero. That's my focus.
No other
Numero
desires.
uno. Right.
Because the desire and fear, those are the two. Those are the
Desires are
stumbling
desires
blocks.
are driven by fears. Right. Improper fear of lack drives a desire.
Sure.
Right. Or addiction to a thing drives a desire. Right.
So fear is the root.
Fear is always the root. Right. That's why it just comes down to ultimately like fear or love. Right. Or fear or faith. Right.
Right.
Or right.
That's the root. Desire has to be cleared away.
If you can boil it down to that, I have a magic flight box, right? And a little vape box, right?
Sure.
And on the back it says, when faced with the choice between fear or love, always choose love. That's how simple it is. You know what I mean? If you really, that's alchemy right there. That's the philosopher's stone right there. And love says, I don't perceive this as a bad scenario. I perceive this as the universe doing me a favor. I don't know. I mean, sure, there's some darker aspects. There's some things I have to let go, but there's something beyond here. I have that faith that there's something beyond all this rigmarole that's going on right here. And I choose to relax and glide through this rigmarole and let it play itself out, right? Because I got my eye on that prize. I know that where we're going, the benevolent universe is taking us there, right?
Yeah. No matter what the situation, no matter what the time and place,
No matter what it seems like,
right?
right?
These kind of things, I think we were talking before the podcast, they've happened in the past.
What's that?
These catastrophes have happened in human history. And then these people,
No shortage, eh?
they come about, right? They come about and they speak the truth, right? And there's a shift that happens.
Potentially. There's been some biblical descriptions of these things, of leadership coming in and directing, right? Under guidance of the ultimate.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's descriptions of that clearly laid out in the Bible.
Absolutely. And it seems that Gandhi kind of walked those lines.
Yeah, he did a form of that, and then there's Noah, and who was it in was it Lot, in Sodom and Gomorrah and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of examples of these things, where a cleansing or a correction comes, and there's do your thing. Now is a good time to do your work. Now is a good time to clean your act up. Hey, that's just the truth of it. There's really never a better time than now to do it. Man, we're in the thick of it right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's easier to hear that, I think, now.
Definitely.
Maybe I should polish my act up a little bit.
Definitely.
Get rid of some things that may not be serving. Right? Yeah. Truly, right now, heaven and hell are in the same place, on the same plane, in this exact, in Marquette, Michigan, right here.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose to attune your consciousness to love and heavenly things and benevolent things and positivity, or the dark, fearful side. There's a whole lot of that going on with the dark, fearful side, right? You know, and it's not all for naught. It's all good, right?
It's hell on earth.
It's a chance,
Absolutely.
right, to work through it and leave it behind, right? But it is hell on earth indeed.
Yeah, we've all
And
experienced
mhm,
a variant of that.
yep, and that you can choose to go to the other side, right? It's your birthright to live perfectly intertwined with the universe, with God, with the ultimate, and be guided moment by moment by a higher visionary consciousness.
Right. The time is now.
It's really looking out for you.
The time is now.
The time is now.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Scott.
Connor, this is awesome, man.
Totally.
This is awesome. So we got some ideas about doing, like bringing somebody else in to share with us
Yep.
in these things, right? To talk about these things and give folks who might be thinking these things but not have a lot of opportunity to talk. Can you imagine not being able to talk with somebody about these things?
Especially, yeah, going through it right now. And I was thinking about that,
I mean, let's give people a chance, eh?
had I had the opportunity to listen to a podcast like this, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan,
Mm-hmm.
which is a podcast about just a variety of different things. And then as I was doing more work and kind of doing more yoga and understanding a little bit more about some of the higher philosophies, I turned to like a Ram Dass podcast, and that was kind of nice, but it kind of faded out after a period of time. And it's great to have the listening modality. If maybe we're on a walk, or I was doing a lot of cleaning, right? I was doing a lot of like physical work. And so if I could put my headphones on and kind of listen to something that was higher consciousness and speaking to the light rather than all the,
Exactly.
names and forms, it was really nice to kind of like get immersed in that for a period of time. So if that can be an opportunity for someone else, I'd be honored.
I'd want it, right?
Yeah.
I'd want that thing available for me. I want it now. I want it, in our
And this
conversations,
is
in our
real
sharings,
time,
right?
like
Exactly.
Ram Dass, his podcast was something in the 80s.
Beautiful as it is
Absolutely.
not here and now. Applicable to these very times,
Right.
right? And that's what we're talking about. These kinds of concepts applicable to these very moments
Yeah. Present
right
day.
now. Yes. Yep.
So, April 17th, 2020. Until next time, guys. Ride the waves, dude.
Peace. So much of it.